Good morning. This is Ron Smith. Hey, I just want to touch base with you on a couple of things going on. I saw this article this morning. It's actually from the New York Times. And then Barry Habib, who's actually one of the number one economists in the United States on housing, is kind of debugging what the New York Times is saying, that renting is better than buying. Great article. Let's take a listen to it. It's a video, probably 6 or 7 minutes, but it's definitely worth watching. If you've got any questions on versus rent versus buy.
Renting forever and trying to create a strong financial future is the article. And then they're really pushing the narrative, saying you should rent, saying renting is a better financial decision. And then they say, well, millions of people are renting, saving money on the rent versus buying and investing the difference. I'd like to know who these millions of people are, by the way. And then over the last century, they point to the S&P returning about a 7% per year return. So look, we'll go through all those numbers in just a minute with you. But first, let's take a look at our tool. Let's take a look at the buy versus rent calculator that we have, and let's show you that breakdown step by step, so you could walk through this. And obviously, you could do this yourself here. So let's break this down for you, because I want you guys to be able to shut down this garbage that's going on out there once and for all. So take a real scenario here. $500,000 purchase, 90 LTV, 7% rate. The monthly payment on the purchase is about $703 a month, more expensive than renting. So here's what they're going to say. Look, you can invest this difference and you could get a 7% rate of return. So let's just go with that. Okay. Now, rents do go up 5% a year, but let's also put the negatives for buying a home. The property taxes, let's say that's going up, the repair costs you wouldn't have with a renting, and the cost to sell. So we're going to put all those things in there as well for you. Now, we're going to go with a pretty modest return. We're going with a real actual area, 4.1%, 4.13% rate of return per year on appreciation, which people say, well, you get 7% for your investment. So why not take 7% on your investment? It's a lot better than 4.13%, right? So we're going to go over all of these things. We're going to turn to our buy versus rent. And here we put the numbers in. And you can see here's the difference, buying versus renting, same numbers, $703, initially cheaper renting. But what starts to happen over time? That 5% increase on your rent starts to take its toll. And you can see that rent gets more expensive over time. In fact, when you take a look at your total cost over time, the amount that you're outlaying cash flow is $483,000 renting, $477,000 buying. Your cash flow is actually better buying than it is renting. But obviously, then you get into your most important aspects. That 4.13% appreciation is $219,000. The tax benefit, which the New York Times doesn't take into consideration. We're going to subtract the closing costs, of course, and the cost to sell, and then, of course, the amortization gain that you get. So between everything, over the 9 years, you're better off by $248,000. But as you can see, in the initial period of time here, you're going to be upside down. But the net is $248,000 difference. So, all right, so let's shut this argument that the New York Times is making down once and for all complete and show you how flawed it is. So yeah, in year one, $703 a month cheaper to rent. So let's assume that you can invest that, and let's assume that you get 7%. So what we did is we take this number and we do the annual differential, right? So this is times 12. And then look, in year one, you get 7% of that. So that's how much you would have after year one. But then if you kept that same nest egg that you said, in year two, it would amount to this, another 7%, and so on. So that would amount to $15,000 that you would have benefited from this first year's savings. Now, in year two, you have a little less savings because while your taxes may go up, your rent has gone up, so it narrows the difference. And as you can see, doing the same exercise, now you started this one in year two with your savings, and by year 9, you'd have $11,000 benefit. Same thing here, but then notice by year 5, the cash flow starts to flip. So when you do this exercise out completely, what is your net benefit? If you had the discipline, it takes a lot of discipline to take the difference in savings and invest it. If you had that discipline, and good luck for people who really do, $6,800, that's what you get. Now, you could say, well, what about if you took the difference for down payment? That's $50,000 instead of putting into your home. What if you invested that and got 7%, right? Well, that's $50,000. So we have 55,000 here. Why? Because the closing cost we put in this estimate of 10,000 bucks. You're not going to be able to use all of that because rent does have some costs associated with it. You have to put your first month's security up as aside from the first month's rent, the security. So we're taking the security kind of out of it, but also remember rent's paid in advance as opposed to a mortgage in arrears. Now you do have some interim interest there. So we're handicapping the difference to be roughly $55,000 is what's usable that you could use to invest. And if you got your 7%, after year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, that's 101,000 minus your initial investment. That's a profit of $46,000. When you add to that the benefit that you would have gotten in your cash flow by investing, that's 52, let's call it $53,000. But remember, what was your grand total benefit of buying when we went through the exercise? $248,000. That's where we were. So when you figure that differential out, your net result, New York Times, is that it's $195,000, even if you A, had the discipline to invest it, and B, get that 7% rate of return. This is where, 4% on buying houses is a lot stronger than 7% in stocks. And C, this is making another assumption, is that during this time frame, rates never come down, highly unlikely. You will more than likely have the chance to have refinanced during this period, which would definitely make this more favorable as far as buying. We're not even contemplating that, and you're still up by $195,000. This is
So, and his numbers actually really work because I just looked, and the median sales price for a home in Lane County in April, sorry, of 2024 was $510,000. So his numbers are very realistic for Eugene, Oregon. So if you've got any questions or you want to learn more about the availability of rent versus buy and the advantages of diving deeper on if it makes sense for you to try and buy, I get it. It's a lot of money and it's not going to get cheaper. There is such a supply problem in Lane County. Prices will continue to go up. There is no housing bubble. So if you have any questions, give me a call, 541-735-9857. Have a great day.